right. So thank you everyone for joining us here at Atlanta Startup Week. We are having a few technical difficulties with our other panelist, Ray. So he'll be joining us hopefully shortly. My name is Natalie Connors. I'm a part of the SportsTech marketing team for Comcast SportsTech. Comcast SportsTech is a 12-week accelerator program designed to bring your sports tech ideas to life, get you to market, and provide players and teams with a competitive edge built on technology and innovation. We have a lot of awesome partners we work with, like Golf Channel and NASCAR and everything in between. So if you want to find more information on that, please feel free to contact me or visit us at comcastsportstech.com. So our panel today, as of now, is joining me is Ryan McNeil. I'm super excited to have Ryan here today with us. Ryan is a former NFL All-Pro cornerback who played 11 years in the NFL. But he's no stranger to entrepreneurship with 20 years of experience. He's the founder and managing partner of OT Enterprises, a media marketing and technology firm focused on the business and lifestyle of sports. His current project is a new database-driven sports technology project called SportsID. So Ryan, thanks for joining me. I'm
excited. Thanks for having me, Natalie. How's it going?
Good. Same old. Ryan and I go way back. So
way back.
So I think we should just go ahead and jump into it, Ryan. Do you want to go ahead and tell us kind of how you got started in the NFL and what that journey kind of looked like for you?
Sure. My journey was probably atypical. I was probably more of a studious type athlete than an athlete. It took time for my body to physically catch up. So I was a late bloomer. That's what we call in the sports space, a late bloomer. I was an A-B student all the way through high school and college. But it was probably the middle of my sophomore year to my junior year that I had a growth spurt and things started to click. And that's when I realized that I might have a shot at getting a college scholarship. And luckily for me, that college scholarship didn't take me too far from home. I'm from Fort Pierce, Florida. And so it allowed me to go maybe less than 2 hours south to University of Miami. Obviously, while there, I was pretty good. I can't complain. Two-time All-American, two-time national champion, was captain of the football team. And so that really kind of opened my eyes as to the possibilities of playing in the NFL, a dream come true, so to speak. But along the way, you were groomed, you were prepped, you were primed to the next opportunity. And the University of Miami did that for me and others for the NFL. And NFL, as you mentioned before, I was two-time All-Pro and two-time Pro Bowler that, kind of made sense. And I felt like I belonged. 11 years was a nice career, and I have no complaints whatsoever.
Yeah, that's awesome. So first, I want to just touch on, the focus of athletics while you're at Miami versus, schooling and all of that. And then I do definitely want to jump into other topics. So what kind of focus did you put on your grades and classes and all of that versus that dream to take it to the next level in athletics?
Well, I think the foundation started with my family. My mom was worked at a college. She was a professor and a counselor. So academics was paramount. Athletics was a nice to have, right? And so that was my mindset going in. So in college, pretty much the same way. Jimmy Johnson was the head coach at the time who recruited me. And he made it plain and simple that, you're here to play football, but you're also here to get a good education because that's the quid pro quo. That's what they were given to you. And while you can give your talents to the school. And so there was no, ifs, ands, or buts. There was no uncertainty. Dr. Anna Price was our advisor as well. And she didn't play. And so, we went there to have fun and we were good. But the main thing was to be able to take full advantage of a top-notch education. And that's what most of us did.
Awesome. So I'm going to interject real fast. I see we now have Ray joining us. So those of you who aren't familiar, everyone, this is Ray Farmer. Ray is also no stranger to the NFL. both playing for teams, but also moving to fill a few other shoes. So he was a pro personnel department for the Falcons, go Atlanta. He is a pro director for the Kansas City Chiefs, an assistant general manager for the Browns, and then turned general manager. And ultimately, he's a serial entrepreneur and a co-founder of SportsID. So Ray, I'm glad you're joining us. Better late than never. Always good to see your face. Can you hear us?
Ray, how you doing? Ray? I don't know if he can hear us.
All right. Well, we'll just bless everyone with his presence that they can look at him, and we'll let Ryan take the lead on coming through with the questions. So Ryan, we can keep going. So now that we can at least see Ray, can you explain the importance of forming a team? So both, on the field, how does that compare to forming a team when you're starting a company?
Forming a team is really, really critical. And I would say that's probably the most important thing you have to do, and depending on your perspective. As a teammate, it's important to try to get the best players you can. As a coach, try to coach the best players you can. And as a general manager or athletic department or a organization, you want to get the best athletes as possible, right? But outside of just assembling bodies and talent, the other key ingredient is chemistry, right? And so the same thing holds true for a startup, that you can have all the talent in the world, but if they don't click, if there's no chemistry, it's going to be tough, a tough road to hoe. And for me, being in sports most of my life, all of my life, chemistry is one of the key things that we look at and is paramount. And that's why I love my team, is that, even though we don't agree 100%, and, I don't know if you ever want to agree with anybody 100% in anything, but we have really good chemistry, and that balances out all the way through. So the small decisions to the big decisions, it makes us, that much better in moving things forward and really be efficient.
Yeah, that's awesome. So on that same note of chemistry and teams and really, making sure you gel on and off the field, when a conflict arises, Ryan, so, the punter misses the kick or someone makes a bad call or doesn't go the way they need to, and, in the office place when you guys are disagreeing on, which market to enter or whatever, how do you deal with conflict within your team?
It depends, right? It depends. If something like that happens, if someone misses a tackle, drops a ball, miss a kick, it depends on how hard you think that they worked, right? We know it's possible, it can happen. The goal of practice is perfection, right? And if someone didn't work as hard or didn't practice as hard, then that's when the problems arise. But if during the summer, during the off season, throughout the week, that your teammate worked just as hard, did what he's supposed to do, how he's supposed to do it, and that's the luck of the draw to miss or to drop a ball, you can live with that because that 9 times out of 10, or the percentages are in favor to do well. Same thing startup. If everybody's doing what he's supposed to do, and for some reason the code didn't work, for some reason a campaign didn't work, okay, let's go back to the drawing board. But if somebody was slacking off all the way through, then that's when you have problems. That's when the problems arise.
Yeah, I like that. I think not being a stranger to the startup space and seeing how hard these companies work, you can really tell the difference of, when something happens that might not go their way, as long as they keep pushing through, they usually succeed. So that's nice to see that comparison. Exactly. So let's talk about reaching the next level, both in athletics and in the entrepreneurial space. So what are some key points that you've taken away from both that helped you get to that next level? So going pro and going and starting this company and becoming a CEO.
It's kind of hard to compare, but I would say this, that going to the next level is something that you got to earn, right? It's something that's not given. In Little League, you have to earn the right to play. In high school, you have to earn the right to play. In college, you have to do well enough to earn the right an opportunity to get drafted and play in the NFL. Same thing with a startup. You got to earn the right. You got to earn the right to have customers. You have to earn the right to have clients. You have to earn the right to have an audience. And that's by offering a good product or a good service. And it doesn't really change whether you're Coca-Cola or SportsID. You have to earn that right. And that's a constant ongoing thing. It's not, a one-time event. It's constantly ongoing. And that's what makes, having a startup, having a business so fun that it can change on you at any given time. And you have to be ready to make a pivot and keep giving value to your customers, to your audience. Otherwise, they too may leave you.
Absolutely. And I love that you compared, a large scale Coca-Cola to SportsID. I think that's something I've always respected about you and your drive in both, that you see the bigger picture and you see what, you can become. So I think that's awesome. So let's just talk, how did you get involved in startups, with you thriving and having all these awards that you mentioned earlier, what took you to do that pivot from being on the field to taking the office? Was there a specific mentor involved? Was there someone whose journey you kind of paralleled and thought that's the direction I want to go?
Well, I'll answer in two parts. The first part is I've always been entrepreneurial. Ever since I was a kid, mowing lawns in the summer. So I've always been entrepreneur minded. I always wanted to have my own. And I think that's where the seed was planted. My father was an entrepreneur, and I have a lot of people in my family that was entrepreneurial. But as far as mentors, tons. You won't find any successful entrepreneur, any successful athlete that did things by themselves. That's bull. And there are people who poured instructions, counsel, sleepless nights, late night phone calls, text messages, letters, notes, you name it, into someone becoming a really good athlete and or a really good entrepreneur. You can't do it by yourself. And that's one thing you learn as an athlete, that even though you may have the ability, that ability is not anything unless it's pointed in the right direction and you have counsel. Veteran players helped me, upperclassmen helped me become the player that I became, and mentors, advisors helped me become the business person I became. And I think still there's room for improvement. I think I'm okay, but there's always room for improvement. As an athlete, perfection is the goal. And as an entrepreneur, perfection, I think, should be the goal as well, knowing that, there'll be some trials and tribulations, there'll be some adversity, but you got to keep pushing through. And I've had the luxury of having really good advisors, really good counsel over the last 20, 25 years of my business career. And you try to pour it back, you try to give back and pay it forward to others as well. And that's why I try to be an advisor as much as I can to startups that I know and startups that I don't know.
Yeah, that was going to be my follow-up. So I've seen you on both sides of the mentoring and advisoryship. So I've seen you, I originally met you as a mentor.
That's right.
And then I watched you transition very quickly into being the mentee. So can you just explain why you made that transition and why was it important for you to, first mentor in yourself, but then learn to get the advice?
Well, I think, as a mentor, you see the world differently than a lot of others. Let's keep the comparison going in athletics and entrepreneurship. So when I look at young athletes, I see myself in them. I see what I did right. I see what I did wrong. And you try to mentor and coach them on what they're doing wrong because you've been there before. Same thing in entrepreneurship. You see the potential of a startup, you see the potential of that team, and you just want to counsel them on what if scenarios. And, this is how I did it. This is how we done it. And you don't tell them what to do. You give them options and give them the context behind that. And that's how I was taught. And that's why I think that that method is probably the best. and you let them choose their path. Nothing's really forced. When I work with entrepreneurs, it's all about, history, the things that work well and the things that didn't work well. And it's easy to go back and forth. And so when we was in the accelerator, we was in the farm, with Ricky, Barunda, you, Marie, I had to switch hats, but I was ready, right? I kind of embraced it. And the thing that allows you to grow is to be open-minded, to be able to receive the counsel, to be receive the mentorship and the advice. And I think our company is better for it.
Learning to switch hats is, if you can't do it and you can't take on different roles and stuff, then you probably don't belong in the startup space.
I agree. Yeah, it's not the place for you.
I'm like, it's just your game's over. So, obviously everything we've talked about is sports related, Ryan. So, why was it important for you to stay in the sports ecosystem? So obviously sports are your passion. I know you really love sports, but why is it that, you went on to, first of all, expand into other sports? So if you want to give a little background on, exactly what SportsID does, that would be awesome. But then why is it important for athletes and people to stay in their respective space and help that grow?
Well, I'll say this before I talk about SportsID is that folks don't have to. That's something I chose to do. That's where I thought the most value that I can give to myself, a business, a group organization, individuals is in the sports space. Is the place that I know, much like a lawyer in law, much like a doctor in medicine. I know and come to know a lot of things in the sports space. As far as SportsID, the easiest way I try to describe SportsID to someone new is that think of SportsID as a LinkedIn for sports. Our goal is to be able to qualify and quantify everything and everybody in the sports ecosystem, people, places, and things. And we do it through data, analytics, and statistics. Think of a profile in LinkedIn akin to one on SportsID, but with data analytics and statistics. We want to qualify and quantify everything and everybody, and create products and services that feed that theory, that hypothesis. And we think we can do that, starting with Camp ID. Think of Camp ID as the Yelp or Angie's List for sports camps. We want to make it easy and efficient to navigate the ecosystem. Right now, we think it's good, but it can be better. It can be more efficient.
And so you see this bigger dream for SportsID. So how do you work towards becoming better, more efficient, all of those things? Easy.
Collaborations. You can't do everything. We're a startup. We have a lean and mean team, very experienced, very knowledgeable, but we can't do everything. And so, anyone on our team will tell you, we are bullish on collaborations and partnerships. We don't try to reinvent the wheel. We don't try to duplicate. We see someone or some group, organization that has something that we need or we want. We're more than happy to pick up the phone, vice versa. We take a lot of calls. A lot of people call us all the time. And every fit or every call won't be a good one. But if we can help them out and say, hey, we're not a good fit, but we know such and such is. And that's kind of what we tend to do. But we bullish on collaborations and partnerships. That's how we think and feel you can scale faster, more efficiently, with less resources. But also, too, we think that that's going to be the wave of the future over the next 3 to 5 years for startups.
Awesome. Yeah. And so, the startup space is always changing.
Always.
We've touched on adapting is the most important thing, having that ability. So COVID, let's just throw it out there. How are you guys in the startup community? Yeah. the lingering word, right? We had to make our way there. Right. How is everyone just in general, Ryan, how have you seen the startup community that you're in shift? But then also, you're talking about, you're making this big build, and how is that changing in the face of COVID?
So some startups have been lucky, right? Sometimes they say you'd rather be lucky than good. The products that they worked on, products that they have, were a perfect mix of need and want in COVID. A lot of virtual solutions made a ton of money and came to the forefront, where the other in-person products or services, it forced you to, re-examine your model, your business model. And for us, luckily, it allowed us more time to fine-tune our product that we're working on to launch Q1 of next year. And so, for example, camps. It was not going to be a lot of sports camps in the summer this 2020. It wasn't going to happen. And so what it allowed us to do was gather more data, do more customer discovery to ensure that what we were working on and what we hypothesized and what we talked to customers 6 months before was the same thing, but they needed little things different here, little things different there. And we wanted to make sure that we were able to provide those. And so we're coming out with a better product, honestly, than what we did had we launched this year. And I think a lot of other startups are doing the exact same thing. Oh, there she is. There she is.
Ryan, don't you dare try to take my place as moderator. I know you think you can adjust well, but I know no. There's no replace me. Yeah,
That's
sorry about that, guys. I could still hear you, so shocker, I was still talking.
No worries.
Ray, can you hear me as well?
I can hear you fine. For some reason, I'm invisible, which is good.
Yeah, we set it up that way. We wanted people to attend. All right, so Ryan, as much as I love you, we've heard from you a lot. So let me ask just Ray a few of the same questions that
please go ahead.
Ask you, and I think it'll bring an interesting, view into teams not always agreeing on answers, but why they still end up working together. So Ray, do you want to give us a quick background on just how you got into the NFL, what that journey kind of looked like for you into athletics? I know yours was definitely a little different as you were choosing between sports.
So Ray, you want to answer that?
I think I lost her. I think I know where she was going.
Yeah.
My journey was simple. I'll keep it to the Cliff Notes version. I played football and baseball were my main two sports. I played them through college. Got drafted in both. Decided to play football. Bad decision. Career cut short due to injury, and then getting back to the front office side of it was a number of opportunities that I kind of took place in right away, from doing talk radio to television to sales to marketing, a lot of different kind of things that interested me at the time when I was younger, real estate. And so all of those things then sent me back into sports. And then from there, it was just kind of the ascent of trying to be the best you can be in that mode. So I went from an academic coordinator, advisor, liaison to recruiting at Duke, those sort of things, to then working for the Atlanta Falcons, then the Kansas City Chiefs, then the Browns, and then now the Rams. And so it's just kind of it was a maturation for myself of growing from one phase of life to the next. And then subsequently, towards the end of that journey, is when I met Ryan. And I had some startup things kind of going in my own right. And some mutual friends connected us and said we should talk because we had similar ideas. And so Ryan, I don't know if Ryan said this or not because I couldn't hear the first part of this, but I'm a big fan of there's no reason to reinvent the wheel. And so it's better to partner and establish a track that we can work on together than to go down parallel paths. And so that's how we kind of met. And again, it's weird. Sports is a small world, specifically the NFL. And so you get to know a lot of people who know a lot of people. And therefore, we connected, liked each other, shared ideas, and SportsID continued to grow on. Don't want to say I abandoned my other ideas. They just kind of got morphed into what the whole conglomerate of SportsID has become.
Awesome. So you two are two peas in a pod. Reinventing the wheel and versus making sure we did it has been touched on. So don't Don't stress about that, Ray. So while I have you both, Ray, we kind of talked about teams and the importance of them, on the field and when you're starting a company. Do you, Ray, because I always love when you tell a story, just kind of want to talk about how you and Ryan connected? I know you had said briefly right then that it's a small world and you guys had some ideas, but how did you actually meet and form this team and ultimately, that led to SportsID?
Again, talking about sports, it was at a youth track meet that we actually met. My son and daughter were running. And Ryan, who were you there to watch? Was it your nephew?
My nephew, yeah. From Orlando. Yeah, my nephew was from Orlando, was in town. Yep. And
so we were running at a regional track meet. Ray Buchanan, I believe, connected the dots for us. We started a brief conversation, kind of as neither one of the kids were engaged. That then led to exchanging of numbers and then us growing it from there. And to that point, I would tell you, to your point, like Ryan and I have a lot of things that we agree on, but there's a lot of stuff that I'm going to say love to banter. We won't call it arguing. We love to banter back and forth on to come up with the right answer to the test. So the one thing I would definitely say about Ryan is that for us, I feel like there's no pride in authorship, right? Whoever actually came up with the idea, whatever actually transpired for us to get to the right answer, it doesn't really matter. It's just about advancing the narrative that's going to help us move in the right direction.
Right. And Ryan said basically the same thing, that collaboration within the team, sharing those ideas, coming together when there is an issue or conflict or disagreement, you talk it out, but then at the end of the day, you guys collaborate. So, what you said, no one takes the credit. You're a team.
We're definitely a team. And I'll add this, right? There's the notion of scientifically, as we get older, we become concrete thinkers, right? Our synapses fire so that we solve problems a certain way. And so with that being said, they generally say that it's the youth that has ideas because they are more creative and open to solving problems in a different way. So being the younger of the two, I'd like to take that mantle and say that I solved a lot of the problems.
I knew the age jokes. When you teed up a question about the youth, I knew the age jokes were coming. So for everyone watching, I'll just put out there, Ryan is older than Ray, and Ray will make sure he mentions it for sure. This is not the last you've heard of that.
That's funny.
So Ray, last thing, just directly to you. So Ryan had emphasized that it was obviously a choice for him to stay in the sports tech space or sports space, and that he felt like that choice was super important to him for a magnitude of reasons. Why did you shift into sports technology? With your career going the way it was, you could have, most likely stayed in sports and on the back end of everything. So why was it important for you to then switch into sports technology?
Again, being the younger guy, I always think that the next piece of the puzzle is the future. And so for the future of my kids, for the future of sport in general, I think as I look at the landscape of where the NFL was, where college football was, and where it's going, where those things are heading, there's an opportunity for us to be truly on the front end of that and to help not only move that narrative, but establish it and create certain pathways that give opportunity to the right kids. Having been through the entire life cycle, Ryan and I both, and Ryan a lot further than I, it's interesting. I would tell you there's a element of, I'm going to use the word luck and happenstance. And there's a lot of people that find their way through certain filters for certain reasons. We were trying to find, we are still currently trying to make sure the right people get the right opportunities for the right reasons. And Ryan may agree with this, he may not. I know we've had this conversation. Sports has always been one of those things where the playing field has always been level. The guy that plays the best deserves the ball or gets the opportunity or scores the points or however you want to label that. And subsequently, what we've both noticed through our times, that truly was not always the case.
Nope.
So trying to find a way for the realities to actually be the realities and not somebody's interpretation of it is what we've kind of tried to embark on this quest for. So I say all that to say it really comes back to sports is so meaningful in my life and the trajectory of sport that I was almost forced to. I do a lot of other things, right? I got a commercial real estate firm. I do tons of other things that I actually enjoy too. But this is kind of at the heart of really what I want to do in my life.
Right. And it's a combination of all the things you love, which I've noticed, when every time I've spoken to either one of you about the company and SportsID and, where it's been, where it's going, you're always so passionate about it. And I think that's why you are successful and continue to be successful, because you carry that passion of sports and your knowledge throughout the company. So I do love that. So Ray, you had mentioned family, and for everyone tuning in, Ryan and Ray are both huge family men, and that to their core is the most important. Can you guys explain, how that you've adapted with your families throughout both the sports world and then shifting into the office?
I'll take the first stab. And the only reason I will is that, Ryan, I think it's going to be slightly different, right? So I've been married for almost 25 years now. And so my wife gets it. She's kind of grown on this journey with me. And so this sounds terrible, but it's honest. I'm a workaholic by nature, right? So my natural inclination is to constantly be involved in some project, thing, event, etc. And so my wife has grown into this. And candidly, it wasn't until my kids got close to high school that I actually felt like I messed this up. Now, I have great kids, right? They're both A students. They're both good at what they do athletically. All that stuff is fine. But I felt like I missed certain parts of them growing up. And so I'm probably a little more balanced than I've ever been now. But inherently, I'm a workaholic. So for all of those out there in tech or in any type of startup, you understand that your life becomes your quest. And I think that's where I've tried to find some balance. And thanks to Ryan, occasionally stiff-arming me and keeping me with my family, we figure out how to combine events, whether he came to the state championship game last year or he came to a game. He's been to multiple games for my kids or events. And we try to mix business and pleasure to keep the ball moving.
Yeah, I love that. Ryan, do you want to comment on the family aspect of?
Yeah. So for me, as a single guy, I have two beautiful daughters, Kyla and Parker. And Kyla is the oldest. She's 23. Parker is 7. And so when I had Kyla, I was still playing in NFL, right? And so you don't realize how much sacrifice professional athletes make. Holidays, weddings, funerals, family reunions, graduations, you name it, you miss a lot of that. And I missed a lot of that for my eldest. And so what Ray was saying was true. You're so programmed and so focused on the next game, the next season, the next contract, so on and so forth. And so she, obviously was smart. She get it from her dad, graduated from NYU 2 years ago. And now she works for CAA, a creative artist agency. And so that was a proud moment. And so because I was retired when I had Parker, I was there more present, as Ray was saying. And so that kind of balances me. And there's nothing like a rambunctious intellect 7-year-old telling you what to do, how to do it around your house to keep you balanced as well.
Yeah. And then this will be my last question. And then we have a few from the audience. What is your advice to people in the startup space, just getting started and maintaining a healthy and level head as you guys have been trying? What's that advice to keep that positive mindset and entrepreneurial spirit?
It's simple for me. Something my dad used to tell us, me and my sisters, plan your work and work your plan. Things can get really, really daunting. Things can be really, really good. Things can be really, really bad. But, work your plan. One of the things that I love about advice groups, mentors, advisors, accelerators, is they try to poke holes in your plan, right? They try to poke holes in what you got. And so you have to be open to it, but also too, once you realize that, there's some flaws there, you got to be willing to suck it up and fix the flaws. And I think that as a startup, you owe it to the product, the business, the service, and your customers to do just that.
I'll add a nugget to that and say that from my angle, I would say two things. One, remain curious, right? So if you remain curious, you will constantly, to Ryan's point, you will poke holes and scratch at your own idea constantly. And that notion of being an active learner and constantly wanting to evolve will make you, it'll give you the mental aptitude to get up every day looking for that new thing, right? And then I would say remain agile is the other thing, since we're in tech, and agility in your space is what it's all about, being able to pivot and adjust. I would say if you continue those two things, every single day will be new, every single day will be rewarding, and you'll take the little steps will mean a lot. And the more little steps you can add, the greater your journey becomes.
Awesome. Okay, so guys, I appreciate that. Let's jump into some audience questions. So Delsa asked, what kind of audience is Sports Idea? Sports Idea. Okay. This is not what Delsa asked.
Enunciation is approved.
What kind of audience is Sports ID geared towards?
That's really a question. So SportsID is a SaaS model. Our business model is a SaaS model, software as a service. And so we sit in the middle of a two-sided marketplace in parents, young athletes, and others. For instance, like camp directors, tournament directors, trainers, coaches. So we sit in the middle of that. And so our audience changes depending on the product. Our product of SportsID, mainly geared toward parents, young athletes. Camp ID, a two-sided marketplace. Camp directors and camp publishers, as well as parents and young athletes. So it depends.
And again, add on to Ryan's point, trainers, medical staff, anyone that's in the sports space has a relevant space for us, right? So as people, and again, having kids that play sports, specifically football and then track, where muscle injuries and soft tissue, et cetera, kids end up at doctors and physical therapists, and then having real understandings of what people have done, and that firsthand ability for people to then research the realities of the change in a potential athlete gives them then a leg up. Now, this is speaking to the advertising side of being able to give people that Angie's List of sports in a lot of different ways of understanding who's really good at what they do in what areas. Take that to the other side of the coin. There's another side of what we're thinking about in the two-sided marketplace of then both the teams, the schools, all the other people that then the athletes looking to engage, they then have a chance to engage the athlete, engage the trainers, and understand the marketplace from a 360-degree scope.
Awesome. So Gamira asked, how long have you guys been up and running?
So that's always a tricky question, and that's always kind of hard to answer. Since we've been incorporated, probably 5 years. We've been working at it since then, but really true, probably the last 18, 24 months, really focus on growing the platform. And so, I always ask startups and entrepreneurs the same thing, and you get a different answers. But up and running, to me, it's the idea and concept been in my head for 10 years. So I don't know if that's the right answer, but to me, it's when you start putting action to any ideas, any to your goals, that's when it becomes alive, I should say.
Awesome. And then the final question from chat is, what is the coolest thing you guys have seen with communities and sports adapting to COVID?
That's a good question. This is a lot. Ray, you want to take that first or no?
I'll go first.
Yeah.
I think the advent of in-home awareness of maintaining your sport, right? So again, having high school age athletes, when COVID hit, I watched the market for in-home gyms go out the roof. I mean, you could have sold a pull-up set, a barbell, free weights. You could have sold that stuff for 5x what it traditionally would sell for, because no one had it. Dick's Sporting Goods didn't have it. Play It Again Sports didn't have it. Anybody selling that stuff on the internet completely went out of the roof because everyone tried to be able to maintain themselves. Gyms were closing. You didn't have access to the things to maintain your position. In that, you then started to see people post, specifically kids, hey, coach, still getting on my daily grind. And that consistent ability for kids to work out at home, to demonstrate how important it was. And then I'll take the next step, parents' investment, right, to maintain their kids' ability to maintain in their sport. Through that time showed how we all then started to try to connect virtually to maintain our positions. So when sports did reappear, we'd all be prepared for those opportunities. So I think the evolution of in-home training, maintenance, et cetera, to me grew exponentially in the last 6 to 8 months of what people thought was possible versus to what people made become possible because of COVID.
I'll add to that the evolution of wearables, and not just wearables, but the data that wearables give you, right? What to do with them, and where to put them, and how to read them, how to interpret them. You saw a lot of athletes, a lot of startups focused on better sleep, better this, better that. And they really got really specific as opposed to general. And we love that because that's where we sit. We plan on bringing in all that data via APIs so you can take a look at your dashboard and see exactly where you are as an athlete. And obviously, we'll continue that to, the Olympic athletes and leisure athletes on the SportsID profiles. But for now, it was good to see that folks are taking data and information really serious. How can I become a better athlete with the data that's been provided by wearables, by devices, by other platforms? And I think that's what you're going to see for the next 5-10 years is a fine-tunement of that information.
Yeah. That's exciting. I always get excited to hear what we might be able to see, and everything continues to adapt. So, guys, before we sign off, I wanted to ask if there's any final thoughts that you guys would like to share with anyone tuning in, either about your journey or any advice you'd like to give, anything along those lines before we end it.
Go ahead, Ray. Go ahead.
I was going to say, and again, I missed some of what Ryan said earlier, but I would tell everyone that has a thought about being in this space, whether you started or you haven't. The technology space, the startup space in general, be it sports, be it something else, is rooted in great ideas. No idea is a bad idea is what my dad always told me. It's like asking questions. Continue to, again, scratch that curiosity. Continue to forwardly attack, and don't be afraid of the no. Don't be afraid of people that don't believe. Those people just add fuel for you, or they should add fuel for you. And as people question what you think is your narrative, it'll help you understand either how beneficial that narrative could be, if you're really attacking it the right way. And questions are always good things. So when people ask you questions about whatever you think your hypothesis is, consider it a benefit to actually them investing in you so that you actually have a robust and stable foundation, because it's that foundation that'll sustain you when, like Ryan said, when you do hear some no's and funding's not going exactly right, or the tech side is a little bit more daunting. That foundation of your basic idea / hypothesis, bringing it to market will actually bear fruit. Last thing I'll say is this, and I'm gonna shut up. It's like the guy that invented the hula hoop. It was a mistake. He sat it. It sat for years until somebody broke it back out. And I want to say it was 5 to 7 years after it was originally invented, it actually took off and became a worldwide phenomenon. So don't be afraid of the dead spots that you actually may see on your journey.
Yeah, our next panel will have Ray hula hooping. Don't forget to tune in.
So I would just add to that the thing that I'm very much proud of is the Atlanta tech scene. So I've been on the tech scene for a long, long time. I did so kind of stealth mode, undercover, incognito. I was going to Hippopotamus when it was a place, when it was a building, right? And not the big regional tech media company is now. And so all over the city. And so I've always been aware and observant of people. And some people I saw who hit it, who ideas took off, changed a little bit. Others did not. And so I would caution everybody who, if you become successful, stay true to who you are, still give back, pay it forward, because that's kind of who the Atlanta tech scene is. You know, so many people have given me, you know, ideas or connections, and just on GP, right? I do the same thing. Hey, I may not be able to help you, but I know somebody who can. And I think that's the kind of Southern hospitality that I love to see in the Atlanta startup scene and tech scene. And it's only getting bigger. And obviously we're getting recognized for it, but I think the best is yet to come. And so, you know, those startups, new and old, I say continue to grind. Tomorrow's not promised. We owe our audience and our customers, you know, our very best every day.
Awesome. And then while you guys are giving your final thoughts, we actually did get one more audience question.
We're done answering questions, Natalie.
Yeah, well, Ray, it's not like you answered the first 30 minutes of them. So
in a tech company, I was completely embarrassed that I was having technical issues. That's what I was like. I got to somehow find a way to get on, at least tell people. You see, I couldn't even log on to this webinar somehow, but if you stay with it, you'll finally get there.
Well, that's the importance of a team. Ryan figured it out. So, okay. So for the last question, Alex Lewis wanted to know: are you guys interested in partnering with SportsTech wearable startups for fueling data that SportsID will provide? And I think just to piggyback on that same note, if people want to connect with you and make these relations for potential opportunities, can you guys explain how you'd like them to do so?
Call Ryan.
The short answer is yes. You know, we have the ability to acquire, analyze tons of data. And, you know, we see our role is to be able to bring that data in and present it in a way that's understandable to the audience. Secondly, they can reach us at ryan.mcneil@sportsid.io. To make it even easier, team at sportsid.io or ray.farmer@sportsid.io. And yeah, I mean, we'll love to chat and talk about potential collaborations with anyone. And again, if we can't help, we'll find somebody who can.
Awesome. I love that. Well, guys, again, I appreciate you joining me. For everyone tuning in, I'm Natalie Connors from Comcast SportsTech. I had Ryan McNeil and Ray Farmer joining me, and guys, I appreciate that. You know, I shot in the chat where they can contact you, and I will talk to you soon. So thanks for joining us.
Sounds good.
Everyone. And
everybody.
We look forward to the rest of Atlanta Startup Week.
Sounds good.
Thank you.